I saw even in his writing that there was something special about this artist, this man of faith. You never used any kind of faith language, but I knew in the way that you engaged that you were a man of faith. So it came out. Jerry, back in the day, was a billboard artist. How did you get involved with that?
This is an example, I think, of how God opens doors where you don't think there might be any. I was in high school back in about 1960. I was a junior in high school. My brother-in-law had been a delivery truck driver for soft drinks around the San Fernando Valley and Los Angeles. I was living in North Hollywood with my parents. And I was an art major in high school. I was interested in art, and I seemed to have some talent in that regards. And so I was looking for a career in art, but I didn't know how that was going to look. We didn't have a lot of money. My parents I was the last of 4 children. And my parents were getting retirement age, and they didn't have the means to send me to art school or anything like that. So I kind of had dismissed that from my thinking, never really even looked into it, to tell you the truth. And but anyway, one day my brother-in-law ran into somebody who was posting billboards, the paper. And he talked to the guy and found out how much they make, and it was more than he was doing. So he applied for a job, and he got a job working out of the San Fernando Valley, which is where we lived. And so he started pasting up billboards. Now, I had never even thought about it. But one day, he and I were pretty close, my brother-in-law and I. So one day he said, I have to go down to Los Angeles to the main plant and do some business. You want to ride along with me? And I said, yeah, that would be fun. That decision right there made a difference in my life, but I didn't think anything of it at the time. But we went down there. We arrived at in the middle of Los Angeles. He said, I have to go to the offices to do, whatever business I have. Why don't you walk down to the paint department, to those buildings right there, and take a look, inside. So I did. I walked down there, and there's like big buildings, almost like a small airplane hangar. And I walked in, and I was blown away, because here was all these men in there on hydraulic lifts or electric lifts with billboards on racks in a row. Both buildings were the same type of buildings, one newer than the other. But these artists were hand painting these huge billboards by hand with oil paint, and turn around, press the button, and go up to a new level and paint, and come down and move along the board. They'd have to push their lift, but they'd move along the board. The boards measured 14 feet high and 48 feet long. And those were considered the small ones. But there was, that was as large a billboard they could handle indoors. So I was just amazed. And they were painting all kinds of advertisements, from Coca-Cola to automobiles to just about anything you can name. And what skill they displayed, you know, and right away, my thoughts were, wow, I wish I could learn to do that. So I talked to some of them. Nobody bothered me. They let me look around, walk through the place. And so I returned there several times whenever I had a chance to go down with my brother-in-law or someone. So that was part of the success because I displayed interest. I showed interest in that. And so after a while, they started telling me about an apprentice program. And the program was to train future artists to paint billboards. But they kept 3 apprentices on at all times. And the apprenticeship was a 5-year commitment. And so when one of them would finish the apprentice program and be promoted to journeyman, they would hire another one. So as you can see, there wasn't a lot of opportunities there.
Right.
There was only one job to come along every couple of years or so. So I eventually talked to the boss. The boss asked me to bring in some of my own work, which I had a few watercolors and things that weren't very impressive, but I brought them in and showed them to him. He said, no, stay in school, but he said, we're interested in you. So I did, and in my senior year, the last semester of my senior year, I went down and he said, do you want to try painting a large sample piece? And I said, sure. You know, he says, I'll give you the paint and the brushes, and I'll give you a panel and you can take it home and paint it at home and then bring it back. So he said, get a picture of an attractive young girl or something from a magazine and bring it to me, and I'll have a pattern made in our pattern department, and we'll get you started. So I said, great. So I got a picture on the back cover of a National Geographic magazine. It was a Coca-Cola advertisement. It was an illustration of an attractive young girl model that was probably painted by the artist Haddon Sundblom out of Chicago. I recognized the style later, but at that time I didn't know. So, but anyway, I took that in. So it was not a photograph, but a photo of a painting of an illustration. So, and Haddon Sundblom had a distinctive style, very soft edges and so forth. So I took it in. He had the pattern made for me and the brushes and the paint, and I went home. He said, I don't have a panel right now, but I will get you one. So I went home, and because of the difficulty in transporting a panel, I just went to the hardware store and got a piece of masonite, 4x8 piece of masonite, and put the pattern on. You know, I mean, I primed that masonite, got it ready, and then I started working on it. Well, my mistake was that I didn't call him back and tell him that that I had already started on it. He was waiting for me to come and get the panel, and I never showed up. And about a month later, I mean, it took me a month, and this was just before I graduated from high school. It took me about a month to work on this. You know, I had no idea. I'd never painted in oil before in my life, other than one of those, you know, paint by the numbers things that they had. So I was completely inexperienced, but I managed to do a decent job for a 17-year-old. 18-year-old then. So I finally called him. And when he answered the phone, he was a little upset with me. And he said, "Where have you been? You were supposed to get a panel." And I explained to him, "Oh, I'm sorry, I got my own panel and I've painted, the picture, and I'll bring it down." So that's what I did. On the strength of that, he hired me as an apprentice.